starting question, the thing that I always ask people is, how did you get started leading folks in engineering, or did you start before, like somehow before then?
Yeah, so it's happenstance, part luck, part accident, right? Like the first 7 years of my life after my undergrad was as a web developer.
Mm-hmm.
So building websites, building apps. I went to a university on the West Coast called Simon Fraser University. They had this new program that spun out of the School of Computing Science called Interactive Arts and Technology. And I thought, oh, this is cool. I get to make video games. And the iPhone was just coming out. So we got to make some early iPhone apps.
Oh, nice.
Um, and that all had an element of design. You're designing a level for a video game. You're designing a UX for an app. Um, so that was my foray, and I thought I was going to be a designer. But because it was a spin-off of comp sci, I was doing a tremendous amount of coding and software development in that
Yep.
computing science program. Um, I even got hired by the university itself. So I spent a couple of years just building websites and apps at a university.
Oh, nice.
When I entered the university, you got this giant like phone book looking thing with all the courses and all the course listing, and everything had a course code. And then you would call in and say, well, here's the course codes for the courses I want for a semester. And we
Oh,
quickly,
wow.
yeah, yeah. And then
That's super primitive. Oh my God, that's wild. Okay.
so that shifted to an online system where you still got the book and the course codes, but you'd go fill out a form online, you hit accept, it would place you in your courses. You'd have your set time to go enter your courses. And so that evolution happened. And then the next evolution was, oh, can we make that, can we get rid of this giant phone book, this
Right,
giant
right.
book, and put all the content on a website in a web application? And that was my foray into content management systems
Yep, yep.
and early days kind of e-commerce because it was you're
Yeah.
adding your courses to a cart and you're paying your tuition. The payment was always separated, but at least locking in your courses. So that was I was a student working for a university, working on these fun little projects. Um, and they were very like marketing, student engagement focused because, as you can expect, calling the call center to book your courses, like the wait lists, the amount of human capital required to fulfill all those calls, and then
Yeah.
printing and shipping those books to the students, to
Oh,
30,000
yeah.
students a year, like it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
astronomical. Throwing everything into a CMS and onto a website. Tremendous, tremendous. Like there was
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
pushback, which is kind of funny because in hindsight, it's like the university must have saved hundreds of millions of dollars
Yeah.
after everything goes live, right? Like the cost of our small staff just probably paid for it by getting rid of the printing and shipping. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so that's how I got started. And I had a very um like everyone makes fun of me for my experience because it took me 9 years to finish my degree. And it took me 9 years to finish my degree because I was working at the
Yeah. Yeah.
university. But the benefit was I would get two courses covered for every semester. So
Oh,
instead of
nice.
doing a full course load, I had a partial course load, which was good. So I come out of school without any student debt, which was nice. And then
Yeah.
on the flip side, I was applying what I was learning in interactive arts and tech. So I was getting work experience on the fly, which was really, really good and really, really beneficial. I don't recommend anyone spend 9 years in a university. That has its own downsides, but that was my experience, and it was a ton of fun. So that's how I got started, right? So graduating, by the time I graduated, I already had 4 years on my LinkedIn of like
Right. Right.
I was a web developer for the last 4 years, and this is what I was working on, and I could speak to it, and I could
Yeah.
show it. And in Vancouver, a local market it's a publicly visible site, so I could show my work, which was
Right.
nice.
Right. And that's a from a school education college experience, having the oh, I'm learning this in class and I'm applying it like in the real world, that's hugely valuable because it's not just a school project, right? This is like the real
Yeah,
thing. Plus, you get all the like the stuff you were talking about, the economics for the business. Like, there's
yeah,
not a lot of people that when they come out of college can immediately talk about that, right?
yeah, and that's why I say a part of it is luck. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know if that is a feasible option. Back then, web development was very, very nascent.
yeah,
So
yeah.
when the university did interview external candidates and a tremendous amount of external candidates to find the talent, and they didn't. And then when they couldn't find the talent, they went to their profs who were teaching this stuff and they said, "We can't find anyone in market that can actually help us with this. Do you have any students to put forward?" And I got a referral. I got two referrals from two different professors. So the
Nice.
social proof was very strong.
That is
So,
awesome. Yeah, that's very
uh,
good.
and I almost didn't take the job too. I was
Oh,
kind of, young and arrogant and foolish and kind of dumb. And I was
oh.
like, but I'm in school. I kind of want to do this. I'm playing soccer. I just rehabbed my knee. I was gonna make another foray to try and make the varsity team. And I was like, nah. And then my parents were like, your soccer days are done. Like your academics are strong, your soccer days are done. I dislocated my kneecap when I was 18, and that basically
Oh,
derailed.
wow.
And they were, you know, soccer in Canada, right? It's like you're not going pro.
Right. Yeah, that's not the
So
big that's good an economic decision is yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I love hearing these kind of origin stories because it, people only think about, like our imagination is bounded by what we know about in the world, you
yeah,
know? And that's an amazing different kind of story. Sorry, that's me dinging over here. Let me mute my phone.
no worries.
Um, Having that kind of an origin story that's so different is for especially for younger people, they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, like that's a possibility, and that totally makes sense. And I think like we've done a lot of work with high school students over the years, and they have a very narrow perspective on going from I'm in high school to I'm in the workforce. Like that, they have this really narrow linear track,
Yeah.
and it's got to be I've got to do it in 4 years, and I've got to go to this set of schools, and I've got to get this degree, and I've got to work, and it's very cool to hear like a completely different kind of an approach. That's
So there,
very
there is a bit of a nuance I should share too, because the 9 years in university is what everyone teases me about. I started like I went from high school to comp sci, and I thought I'm gonna write code. I like this. This is what I like to do. This is my future. And it did not work because desktop software was the flavor du jour. Like that was what everyone was
oh
building.
yeah,
Um, and I hated it. I hated building the packages. I hated writing software. I hated the programming languages because in high school I was making websites. I thought that was cool. I thought that's what I was gonna do.
right.
So I switched. I went to business and started doing management information systems. And that changed my lens or perspective. That's why now, like when someone puts this problem of like take this book with all this content and put it online, I'm like, that absolutely makes sense. That book, the printing and shipping
Oh
and
yeah,
cost is
yeah,
insane. Like, why wouldn't you do this? You got your pennies on the dollar savings. Like, but I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
think that's an engineering or comp sci mindset. It's because I did a
Right,
diversion
right.
into management information systems for a couple of years, and then CAT School of Interactive Arts and Tech was kind of born, and I was like, that's where I need to be. So I did not finish comp sci. I did not finish business. I finished with interactive arts and tech, but I feel like having those along the line, like kind of like minors, like not
Yeah,
the full
yeah,
degree, but subspecializations that helped.
yeah.
Um, and to this day, like I still kind of think along those terms. Like when I talk to my customers and we're talking about building software, I'm like, well, okay, this makes a lot of sense because you're looking at case deflection and removing calls from a call center and helping customers get things done faster. That makes sense,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's a similar linear kind of tangential thread, but that's how I built the skill set. Now, you asked how I became an engineering leader or kind of
Yeah, yeah.
a
When did you
manager
start
of
leading teams?
managers.
Yeah.
Um, I moved around a few organizations. So and in doing so, I stopped coding and started spending more and more time in meetings talking about the software that other people were writing and other people, and then eventually climbing the promotion path into kind of an engineering manager type of role. Um, and then that was fun ish. Also, this is a bit of a time frame where I was quite a bit younger than some of the people that were working for me. So it had its
Mhm.
own challenges, its own difficulties. But it was still, it was just time and effort and being able to straddle a technical lens and a business lens, I found to be kind of the sweet spot for me. Um,
Right, right.
and that's how I progressed my career. Um, Eventually I spun out and started my own agency. It's like web development agency with a couple friends, and I was hiring my friends. So I was default their manager and their CTO because I was one of the founders.
Right, right.
Um, but really like I did not push um I guess build like it was all still craft. It's very much craft focused and technical acumen focused. I didn't really grow myself as a leader until I was pushed to when I started to work in larger and larger organizations. And I worked at a telco here in Canada, and they is an incredibly large organization, and they have entire programs for early leaders to build their leadership skills and their management skills and how to really take care of the people working for them. And that's where I
Nice.
started to build that muscle because I did not have that. And that's kind of the benefit of going from smaller startups or smaller agencies to a large corporation because it was eye-opening that oh I have access to all of this programming and resources that I didn't have, and it's free, and it's just part of becoming a leader in this organization. Um, and so quite a bit more emphasis on building, maintaining culture, community, the
Hmm.
happiness. There are pulse scores now where your team is reviewing you as much as you are
Right.
reviewing them, right? So that reverse review,
Yep,
like
yep.
the first few reviews for me were not great, and that was a big hit to my ego, but I needed it. And
Right, right. Oh, that's
yeah,
so interesting. So I'm super curious. The programs that at the telco, what were like three things that were big ahas for you in there, as you were learning versus how you've been operating when you were doing your startup?
so startup and agencies very much like work focused and billable focused and getting delivery and execution focused.
Yep.
Um, and moving into an enterprise and having reverse pulse scores, the feedback that came in was very uh, almost robotic. Like I wasn't treating people like people, I was treating people like resources. And
Oh,
and that
interesting. Okay.
which in hindsight is fair. That's exactly what I was doing because I was project managing and assigning resources to tasks and waiting for the execution. I wasn't building the team. I wasn't building the culture. Um, Now the big lesson learned though is like after going through that journey and spending more time on team building and cohesion,
Hmm.
I stopped worrying about project timelines and deadlines and execution because the team got better and better and better. And we like that it was almost like a weird roundabout way of the delivery timeline, like the team's just much more efficient and
Yes.
better as a unit. So we're always on time and on budget because
Right.
everyone's communicating clearly and everyone has each other's back. And it's not like you do this task, you do this, you take this ticket, you take this ticket. It's like it becomes more of a team approach, and then everything gets done, and then the quality also improves. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I've been doing it wrong for the first 8 years of my career. I just completely missed the boat of like what it means to have a high performing team. I had a team that was performing, but they weren't some great individuals, but it wasn't like we were producing incredibly great software at a high quality. We were just getting it done because I was screaming at them to get it done. when I had that flip, it was much more like I don't have to chase anyone anymore. And the benefit is people are generally happy to work
Yep.
together and work efficiently. And so um, that culture and coaching piece, I was doing no coaching. I was just chasing people to finish their work. I was
Right.
not
Right.
helping, and that's the other piece. I was not helping others grow their career. I was not looking at their gaps and their weaknesses and then looking at the programming or the exposure or the work that they could be doing to improve themselves and move them up on a promotion pipeline. These were all the things I needed to do after going through these. These were my gaps. I was not helping my people with these things. That was
Right.
a huge
Right.
part for me.
Yeah. That is an amazingly awesome insight. Like it's real because I could talk to a lot of people that lead teams, right? And it's amazing to me how few of them recognize that thing that you just talked about where before you understood about coaching people, you were chasing to get projects done. And then magically you take care of your people and now you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like everything gets done. And that's such a non-intuitive perspective to have. And it kind of goes back to until people hear about that, they don't think about that, right? It's like it's not um
Well, my perception also changed because I thought this is a bit of nonsense, and my perception of the people and culture team completely flipped, like a 180 flip of like, oh no, this is they got this. Like they've been researching this for much longer. Like
right,
this makes
right.
sense.
Yeah. That's such a I'm I'm all about how do I get my teams to be happy and high performing because exactly what you're talking about, right? When teams are happy, they perform really, really well. When they're not happy, their performance sucks. I mean, and you getting exposure and learning how to do that, that's and being able to see that, that's amazing. What were the like what were the starting points when that the training program got you to start implementing to help your team operate better?
Well, so there is a little bit of a prescribed path that I had, like a little bit of coursework that I had set out.
Yep.
Pretty similar to my university experience too. It's like I'm going to do a bit of coursework. I'm going to A/B test it with my subordinates, with my colleagues, with my peers.
Yep.
And I didn't always follow everything to the T, because I did find some of the processes and systems can become onerous, and then I spend more time administrating management processes than actually building software. And
Right. Right.
so finding that balance, I think, is really important. And that was something that I was what I wanted to do, but also aware of. I always
Mm-hmm.
try to stay reasonably relevant when it comes to craft, and
Yep.
so that was one of the things. Now with AI, it gets a bit easier too because I have a tool that can help me kind of automate and build drafts and fill in more gaps, or I don't have to go do any hunting or finding. I have my own coach that I could rely on to help in certain scenarios. So that's good. But ultimately, like some of it also just procedural. Having regular touch points that one connect on the work, because I think that's pretty straightforward. Like the
Mm-hmm.
work has to be in a reasonable state, but then also carving out time to discuss like what's going on in life, what's going on the weekends, what are your ambitions outside of this role, what are your ambitions within this role, and what kind
Right.
of plan can we put in place, and then what are the smaller steps. So exactly what I was doing around project management for software delivery, but now it's for people,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a lot more opaque because everyone has a slightly different plan, and that's fine. And um, that takes a lot more work, but it is meaningful work.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think the return on the return on time investment when you're actually talking with your people, if their performance is going up because you invested 30 minutes a week with them, their productivity is going up by more than that 30 minutes is.
Yep.
So it's a net positive. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's yeah. So from a business perspective, there's always yeah the performance and the output makes a ton of sense. Sometimes it's just just I can provide guidance or they can provide me guidance or it's just sharing insights so we can be more
Right.
effective. That also is very beneficial. Um, and sometimes it's just the shared experiences, like and the shared time and the shared meals helps with collaborative efforts. And so I'm spending a fair degree of time with my fellow salespeople now at Uniform. We're just in a market where I don't know if you've observed this, but I've observed this. The buying market is incredibly fickle. Every vendor website looks the same. So the sales leadership and the salespeople want to their customers are almost demanding someone technical is on the call to support the conversation.
Right. Right.
So I get pulled in, and I'm happy and fun to do that. So I spend a lot more time with salespeople than I normally do, and that time and collaboration and helping them win is like I need that time with them to help them win. So we understand working styles, collaboration, how we can bounce off one another and be a cohesive unit.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of those kind of engineering leadership skills also then traverse beyond just engineering.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think because you went the route of learning more about business when you were in college. That gives you a broader, more diverse pattern recognition ability, and so you can see, oh, helping salespeople talk to their clients is hugely valuable. And it's funny because that's such a needed skill set. And all the folks that I know that do enterprise sales, they always have a sales engineer.
Yep.
And I notice how they talk about the sales engineers that are really, really good communicators with the clients, and how they love them. They're like, this person is so amazing. Every time we have a conversation, they remove all the friction, for the client, right? And that's such a I think from as a career path for people to go into the technical side of the world,
Yep.
the stuff in engineering. If you can pick that, I think it's got all kinds of interesting potential, and yet almost nobody goes there. It's such a small fraction, and I don't know why. I can't figure out.
It's a different skill set. Like so building and supporting solution engineering teams is something I've done over the years.
Yeah,
And it's you need someone who wants to like really solve puzzles.
right,
Um, and that's often my mantra is like we'll solve the technical challenges and the technical problems. Any business, any commercial things, we just punt right back to the salespeople. They can deal with that. But we got to put ourselves in the shoes of that client or of that customer and say, okay, if you have these challenges, here's how I would solve the puzzle. And
right, right,
it's just an opinion. But oftentimes people value that opinion. It's like, oh, someone who's hitting these problems, because that's the other benefit of solution engineering is a customer client may hit that problem once every 5 to 10 years. A solution engineer is going to hit that every single call with every different customer, with every different prospect.
right,
So
right,
you over, in as little as 1 year, you have pattern recognition. You now have pattern
right,
recognitions of like similar challenges, even though the industries might be different. Here's what's worked, here's what's not worked. You actually want to
right.
learn about what's not worked so that you don't make those fails and stumbles. Like I have the scar tissue. I'm going to share that scar tissue with you. And that's I think that's kind of the approach. And then when I work with the solution engineering team, like I want them to do the same thing. And that's the coaching and the mentoring and the guidance of like that is your role in this equation. You are brought in for your opinion and your scar tissue. It's
Yep,
almost like a pseudo consultant, right? It's
right, right. Oh yeah,
not a demo jockey. You're a pseudo consultant.
Right.
and that's how the client will appreciate your time and value. And then the
Right.
salespeople, when they close that deal, they're gonna love you because
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. 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 And it's such a I think about that from an engineering leadership perspective as being you now have so much more insights to bring the team than somebody who hasn't done that kind of thing, you know? Um, and for everybody else who's not in that kind of a role, they get a much better understanding of why in the world we're doing this thing, right? Because you know how to talk about the pain point of the customer and bring them that that underlying why does this matter. um yeah, yeah,
and
that's
on the flip side, I feel like the solution engineering teams, like we're a good proxy to product because
yeah,
we're talking to customers day in and day out. So we're gonna hear problems, opportunities, solutions, and what keeps them up at night. And
right,
once there's pattern recognition, you hear something 3 times in a row, it's like product, we got to go fix for this. We got to go build for this.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
it is it's a fun skill set. Um,
yeah.
and I feel like there's no like trade program or for there's no program to teach people this, but you do kind of accumulate the skills from other engineering. Like if you're building, if you're consulting, you can kind of put together the skill set to be good at this. Unfortunately, there I do see an unfortunate that most of the so you use the term called sales engineer. I use the term called solution engineer. When
Mm-hmm.
I am talking to someone who comes from sales engineering, oftentimes they're really, really good at demoing one thing. And
Oh, interesting.
so I try to like extract or extrapolate like, okay, you're what can you do that's not beyond just the demo? Because the demo
Right,
is
right,
important. It's very, very important. But what
right,
are all the things
right,
you need to do before the demo and after the demo to really understand that the demo we are actually solving the problem that the client is having.
right,
Otherwise, it's just that, it's a fun exercise of a demo, but I can make a video and throw on YouTube that does the same thing you just did.
right, right. Yeah, I might have to update my language and start talking about solution engineering. I'm gonna have
But
to
it,
actually, well, I'm gonna have to go ping actually some because I might be using language incorrectly,
oh, okay.
right? I need to go talk to the folks that I know that are in enterprise sales and ask what do they call this person?
Well,
What's because
yeah,
it may
I
be
think it's
the
still sales engineer and solution engineer kind of go back and forth, but
okay, yeah,
I've become, again, this is over the years I've become particular about the language and the need.
right, right, yeah, yeah. Well, it also frames other people's perspectives. So, if people think of sales engineers as demo jockeys and solution engineers as curious problem solvers, then if you're a curious problem solver, you don't want to be pigeonholed as a demo jockey, right? You don't want to, so you really want that language to be out there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, in the space I'm in, I need curious problem solvers with a little bit of
yeah,
scar tissue that can also do a demo, but that's a
right.
25% of the whole role, not 100% of the role.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's a really cool insight. Yeah. Um, why do you think, like, do you have a bunch of people in line that are wanting to go into solution engineering?
I'm not. I don't know. I don't think so. I think the appetite to go into solution engineering is more happenstance. It's almost like there's a pull, um,
Mm,
not a push. But I don't know. It's just I feel like the the network and kind of the LinkedIn chatter ebbs and flows because there has been a lot of layoffs. There are a lot of
mhm.
folks on market, and so it may be a weird a weird saturation moment where there are more job seekers than there are jobs. But
Right. Right.
I can see that flipping by like H1 of next year. Um, just as I see the market kind of stabilizing, and there have been my observation on the market is there's been a very little of decision making happening
Sure.
given the macroeconomic climate. And
Yep. Yep.
as it's stabilizing and we come out of summer, a lot of those decisions that were supposed to happen last year or early this year that got punted are gonna turn in Q4 and Q1 of next year. And so
Right.
a lot of the transformation that was supposed to happen and everyone's just waiting to see what new tariffs are gonna hit us kind of thing.
Right. Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's all, as it all settles, then we start to see more business activity. So I'm looking forward to this upcoming Q3, Q4, and Q1.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Do you think I'm really like I'm super curious now about the supply and demand for solutions engineers.
So
Um, yeah.
can I make a point here? Sorry to
Yeah.
interject. So the reason I think it'll swing back is so one, AI is changing how folks do things.
Yep.
And so solution engineers with AI at their back can do a lot more interesting, fun things before you hop on a call with a client, or even when you're on a call with a client, you can show the art of possible a lot more, which removes a tremendous amount of risk. There's always this like cold start problem in enterprise sales of like, I gotta build something, I gotta migrate something, I gotta hire developers, I gotta hire agencies. And now it's like, well, you still have to do those things, but we're also going to augment it with AI to reduce the friction.
Right.
So
Right.
this is where I think solution engineering is going to become even more important if they are AI assisted.
Right. Is there?
That's a hypothesis. Don't quote me
Yeah.
on it. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
check in
Yeah.
6 months and
Yeah.
see how it goes.
Big disclaimer in the podcast. This is just a hypothesis. Don't bet the farm on it yet.
Yeah.
Um, so at some point in time in my, I don't know, maybe the third company that I worked at, maybe the third or fourth. Um, I had this moment of, oh, like this kind of aha moment of everything that we're building is just this is and this sounds like super simplified. I don't know, like uh recognize that, right? But I was like, oh, everything that we're building is just a database, some business logic, and a presentation layer, right? And this is before anybody was talking about model view controller frameworks, right? This is like way before then. And all of a sudden, everybody that I talked, like every business problem that I saw, I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see. What does the database look like behind that? What does the business logic look behind that? What is the presentation layer, for the client? And I realized also, oh, wait a minute, the client doesn't understand the when I talk to the client, I need to talk about what does it look like? Like, what do you want to see first,
Right.
right? And how do you want that to operate? And then the last thing is get to the data model. Even though in my head the data model oftentimes started off as being the very first thing because they talk about data. Um, with your experience in the AI world and how you're thinking about enterprise sales, is there kind of a parallel pattern to that?
Oh
Like,
yeah, 100%. And it's coming back to that hypothesis. This is also why early in my education, I was like, I can't do desktop software because it did not. Whereas in web software from the get-go was like, I have a view. It's on a thin client on someone's devices or a fat client on a server, and it's connecting to a remote database where my data is stored. And I write the controller in between, right? And
right,
that was the pattern of web, and I did not see that pattern in desktop. That's why so uh that's why I gravitated that way. When we look at today, we're starting to get to a point, and it's getting scarily good. It's not 100% accurate, but it's getting scarily good where I can go into a V0 or a Lovable or a Bolt.new and I can mock up. my view. I can mock up my presentation of what the application should look like. I can prompt it to get some reasonable level of interaction. And then, so I work at Uniform. Uniform is a orchestration, APIs, integrations, but
Hmm.
also we have a content management system for headless data storage. And we have what's unique to us is we separate how the view, what the component structure should look like, and the kind of data you need to feed a component, and what the and the content structure. So we have component model and content model, two different types of models. And now I can go to my MCP server, so I can ask Lovable. Lovable is my tool of choice right now.
Sure.
Um, and I can go Lovable, install Uniform, and based on this UI, create me my component models. And then we'll create a nice JSON text definition of the data I need to fill my view. And that will be one. And then I can say push to Uniform. It'll go create my component models in Uniform. And I guess, well, based on what you're seeing on screen, what does my content model look like? And it will create a JSON structure, a clean abstraction of how the data is stored and how it's viewed. And it will create my first set of content models. And then I'll go into Uniform and I'll be like, well, this is all junk. So I got to fix this. But it's good. It's a good starting point that it's created some things like I will, with some brain and expertise, I'm going to rejig it a bit, but that's why I'm saying it's scary. Like if I were to go in and manually create content types and component models, I can do it and I'm fast. I'm not nearly as fast as the 15 seconds the AI took.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is where
Yeah.
so the pattern is still there. And if you have expertise in the pattern, you can like something that would take me a couple of hours is now taking the AI a couple of minutes, and then I'm QAing and checking and fixing for another
Right.
15 minutes or so. And then I
Right.
come back to the AI and I'm like, all right, I've now entered in a ton of content and remap it and relink it. So that controller code that we call it glue code that takes content from that database or source and maps it to the front end doesn't exist anymore. Like it's just like I don't have to write very much of it because that's part uniform. And then the AI closes any gaps. And I'm like,
Right. Right.
this is gonna be a very fun future where I can, I was talking to someone recently about how they go into Figma to do mock-ups and designs and they attach it to a Jira ticket and then the development team goes and takes it on a Jira ticket. And I'm like, you can do that mock-up in Uniform and hit publish and the code's there because the AI has already generated the code and you have some boilerplate ready to go.
Right. Right.
This is going to change how you operate your digital experience, your websites, your apps.
Yeah. Yeah. That is it's interesting. And a little scary because you know what you're describing is you need less software engineers because if you're
Uh,
going from
I,
you know
I, I,
or yeah,
again, hypothesis, I disagree with that
okay, tell me more.
because there has always been a gap of how much software people want and businesses want and individuals want to build and how many
Right.
software engineers are in the world. So software engineers are very highly paid, so only the most valuable software gets built. I still think that there's a big chasm of how much software do we actually need in a functioning society versus how much we can afford to build. And so we're not necessarily reducing the cost, but we're democratizing. So I actually think
Okay.
we'll end up building more and more and more software. We'll grow the entire software development industry with AI tools, but we will with the intent of improving people's lives. Software that
Right.
normally wouldn't get built because it's not commercially viable will now get built.
Oh, that's interesting perspective. So which in some ways sounds like not necessarily open source, but
Like I'm
yeah.
thinking like small things like I need a system to manage my Lakeshore Dads or my over 40 soccer team. No one's writing software for that. There's no there like no one's writing. But with an AI and a few of us are in the industry, we could whip it together and all of a sudden we have, like we can kind of solve some of the mundane like tasks.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it. That's a really interesting insight. And yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it because the financial viability of whatever it is that you're doing, that totally makes sense. And in some ways it's kind of a it's an evolution of mobile apps, of the idea of mobile apps, right? Because mobile, if I think about it, my Spotify subscription only works because I mean, Spotify only works because there's whatever it is, 40 million people with Spotify subscriptions, and that so if the economic viability of that is based on volume, and so if you build this soccer dad's management tool, it's really about the opportunity of, and you want if you want to make some money on it, right? Somebody does, then you want every soccer dad's organization across the country to see that as a smart investment for $3 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Or the economic, I guess what we're seeing, what well again hypothesis, what I
right,
suspect we'll see is a change in the commercial viability of software.
right,
So because right now, like really good ideas get funded because it's expensive to build software, market software, and
right,
make revenue off software. Um, what if you don't need to make money? What if you just need to do it to save time in your life?
right,
That's that, the I've now checked the box that it's like, yeah, I'm going to spend 15, 20, maybe 25 hours on an app, but it's going to save me over the next year or so, plus the other 40 or so dads in that group is going to save us cumulatively a couple hundred hours of not chasing
right,
fees
right,
and finances and field appointments and beer allotments. So
right,
who
right.
knows, right? Like
Yeah,
that's just
yeah.
not necessarily the best example, but it's, something comes up every week.
But it's interesting because I'm thinking about places and applications where maybe there's software out there, I just don't know about it. But having something that would solve that time problem, that would save time in the grand, like there's a family birthday party that in August. There's 55 people that get invited. It's an extended family, right?
Yep.
And we have to manage all the food, who's
Yep.
actually going to show up, what's everybody bringing, how much cutler do we need, how much drinks do we need, are we all gonna cook, or are we gonna order out, or what are we gonna like? And right now it's through an email thread and a
So
spreadsheet.
what you just described to me is probably enough requirements that I could go to chat.com, ChatGPT, and be like, here's my requirement. Can you build like a product requirements doc for me? It's gonna
Yeah,
ask it. So the beauty of the chats now is they prompt us as much as we prompt them. So it's going to come back to you with a bunch of questions. You're going to give it more information, and then it's going to spit out a PRD that you put into Lovable, and it will build your first version of an app. And it probably
right,
will have an interface that connects to Supabase that will store a bunch of information. You send a link off to all your family. They all go in and fill out some data and fill out some forms, and then you get a nice aggregate dashboard report of who's coming, when they're arriving, what they're bringing, any food
yeah,
allergies, blah 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 blah. And then
yeah,
your email thread, or it becomes a dashboard, and that's the kind of thing. It's not commercially viable to make that software,
right,
but it
right,
saves
exactly, yeah,
your
yeah.
family of 55 people hours and hours and hours.
Oh yeah, and then like because it's this email thread, it's super hard to make sure you're getting everything right,
Yep.
because I have done things like reply only to the sender and not to
Yep.
everybody else. And then nobody knows. And they're like, wait, what about blah, blah, blah? Usually Bill brings this stuff. And, and all of a sudden, and I've just broken the communication methodology. Right. Um, and,
You might be building some software this weekend just now. uh I am sorry, Bill. I know
no, no, I
we're
look at the time.
2:50.
Yeah, no, we're about to run out. This has been awesome. It's been super insightful. I think the last question I have is, if there's someone who's working in engineering and they want to move into leadership, where's some place they could go or things they could learn that would get them started down the right path?
Yeah, so I did a windy path, and my windy path was I learned program management and product management.
Okay.
I kind of took a bit of a career trajectory turn
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
give like technical program management a go, and that helped me on my path back to engineering leadership because there is a software delivery side, and then that as an engineer you focus on.
Yep.
There's a whole world of planning and strategy. So planning in the program management side and
Oh my
strategy in
goodness.
the product side, I had no idea, absolutely no idea. But after going to program management and then kind of moving laterally to a product management role, and then coming back to an engineering leadership role, like that was my path, and I felt much more empowered to make sure, hey, we were building the right software, building it on time, like building it the right way, um,
Yep.
but also gave me a tremendous amount of confidence that I could lead a team. And that was
Mhm.
always the missing gap. After being 4 or 5 years in the engineering field, I just did not have the confidence that I could lead these incredibly smart, talented, technical folks.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but I didn't need to lead them on anything technical. That was another aha moment through the program management and through these other courses. Was like, I don't actually need to know the tech that great. I'm steering a boat of experts, but they're all pulling their own weight, and so
Right.
uh, part of that was letting maybe it's just the years changed my ego. So
Yeah. That's good. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, yeah, your job is to guide, their job is to have the expertise.
yep.
Yeah. And
I
you know,
used to think I got to be the best at all of these different things, and it's like there's no way I'm going to be the best at any of these things.
right.
So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the guy that's guiding the ship, the captain, can't go and do the engineering and fix the engine and then also cook all the food at the same time that he's also guiding the boat. Like you gotta you have to have that focus. Yeah, this will make sense. This has been super
I hope
cool.
that
Thank
helps
you.
though. So
No,
engineers
it's
learning program management incredibly
yeah,
important,
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
painful.
I think that's a great insight, and I think like I don't think anything really has a directly linear path. I think paths and so what you're talking about here is it corroborates my hypothesis. So thank you for being a data point.
Okay.
Um, on that, you know, the path is does bend and it does go back and forth and you do have these lateral things, but that's how you get to become effective, right? It's not just this straight arrow path. It just does. I don't think anything works that way.
Yep.
So this has been super cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for thinking of me. I hope this was beneficial. I
Yep,
hope we can make some folks 40% better.
exactly.